to the Montreal Forum with your host, Liam Maguire. This broadcast will be coming to you from left to right on your listening device.
Thank you, Dick Irvin. Another fabulous introduction from the legend himself, Dick Irvin. Dick Irvin Jr., of course, Dick Irvin Sr. being his father, who was the longest coach the Montreal Canadiens ever had, 1940 to 1955. Pretty good record, only 3 Stanley Cups, but some trips to the finals as well. He had success in Chicago and Toronto before that, before coming to the Habs and before Conn Smythe pretty much insisting that he joined the Canadiens, who came so close to folding in the late 30s. So close. Hung on, got Dick Irvin Sr. Tommy Gorman was a general manager. He tried to trade this brittle right winger from the city of Montreal who was tearing up the local senior leagues and junior leagues. But anytime, as soon as he played pro, he broke a bone. He said the kid is never going to stay healthy. Hello, Curvy Doc. And not that he's any rocket. And no takers. There were no takers for Rocket Richard in those days. He stayed with the Habs. Elmer Locke came out of the New York Ranger training camp, told Blake they'd picked up in a trade from the Montreal Maroons in 1935 after the Maroons won the Cup. So Blake was piddling along and with the Habs, although had a couple good seasons in the late 30s with them. And then magic was formed, and the rest is history. So we got his son, Dick Irvin Jr., with the intro to my show, and Grant's, thank you very much for it. Liam Maguire here with the Montreal Forum. That is my show, and it is we're a little shell-shocked, aren't we? Although the game against Boston at least was closer compared to the last 2 debacles against the Los Angeles Kings, which was 40 minutes, the second and third period collapse. Dallas, who, again, if you think about it, an outstanding first period by us. We really deserved a better fate. Found ourselves only down 1-0. And again, second period, an absolute cave-in. And the rest is history. We've seen the results. And two things that are, of course, more evidently frustrating than anything for all of us as Habs fans. That is the parade to the infirmary, which we kind of dodged last year, notwithstanding Doc, and some others, Goulet comes back, gets hurt, comes back, gets hurt. But we didn't have anything else that was really, really significant. And Laine going down early this year I don't think it really concerned a lot of us. Goulet got hurt. We were used to that. It was disconcerting to hear he was back on the ice and then I guess must have opted or was instructed for the abductor surgery. So now we know it's, I guess it'd be 7 weeks and change. And then boom, on the weekend or the last couple of games. My goodness gracious. Newhook, Lyubushkin on he didn't give him much, but he gave him enough and in he went. And that just looked absolutely horrible. And now Kirby again blocking a shot. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's listen, every team to a degree is dealing with it. The Florida Panthers are out of the playoffs right now, and they're going to say, a lot of their fans too are going to say, you know what? We're not going to worry too much here. We're a few points out, and we'll see where we are. Trade deadline after the Olympics and everything else. They'll probably still be a few points out or have climbed their way back into it. Matthew will probably be back. Barkov's probably gone for the year. They're already dealing with some other niggling injuries as well that have all sort of probably combined, shall we say, to be a factor to where they are in the standings. And I don't think a single one of them are probably even concerned. Of course, the back end of that is the 3 straight finals and 2 straight cups. So they have less of an inclination to be really grievously upset by the recent turn of events for their injuries as well. I know they had some others too that were just announced. They had some other guys there in the last 7 to 10 days. So they've got a number of starters out. But in respect to the Habs, look, it's a couple of things. We did go through this last year. We had the bad start. We were last after 15. We clawed our way out of that. But before we went on that sort of our first real tear, 13-4 between the middle of December and the middle of January, we had like 5-6 straight losses. We had that again in the season. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe we actually made the playoffs, really. Think about it. But the Atlantic kind of came back a little bit last year in terms of what you needed by a point or two, and that helped. And our surge there, post-Four Nation helped. And just so many other good things internally on the ice that were a contributing factor that have kind of all fallen off the cliff here in these last couple of games. So we'll address those. I'm no Sam Pollock in disguise, and I'm not parachuting in at Yvon Cornway trying to describe the difference between Tove Lake and Scotty Bowman. I'm neither of those. None of us are, but we're all going to play one on our laptop or radio dial or TV screen. And in this case here, webcast. And listen, to me, it starts and stops at the power play. You can't go 0 for a million in the last 5 games and have 2 5-on-3s against the Bruins. I mean, I thought I was going to throw up. It was so frustrating to watch them not figure out a way. It's one thing I'll say about Laine, man. I mean, I don't think he had a good last 8, 10, 12 games of the season when he cooled off and teams started marking him. And he, of course, got hurt pretty early in the Washington series. Not a factor and really nothing at all this year. But man, oh man, who didn't want him out there on those 5-on-3s on that left side? Just work it down low. Let Hudson set him up. He's inside the top of the circle. He's scoring 9 out of 10 times. All he has to do is get the puck in one of the gaps and it's in. No goalie stopping it. And at least his mindset is to shoot. It's not Demidov's. And when Caulfield loses confidence, he's less inclined to shoot as well. And you need a shooter. Yeah, inevitably, you have to have a shooter. I always go back a lot of times to who is doing the game. It's our first sort of inclination as to how we're picking up what we're watching as well if we weren't in attendance. Gary Galley, at least if that was your broadcaster of choice on Saturday, talking about no net front presence and overpassing. It doesn't really get any simpler than that. In the case of Slav, who's struggled the last few games here and probably will most of his career, you know, it's very early still. No one's going to write him off. I'm definitely not, but we're probably going to, what we're seeing here earlier when he's on, he scored at a much higher rate than ever before. And we're all so encouraged by that. But in terms of what he's going to produce offensively, you can see now he's a few seasons in and you can just see where the shortfalls are. And in terms of where Montreal, what they got to try and do to right this ship, to me, it starts and stops. You had a power play that was sitting around 4th or 5th at 28%, incredibly high, has most are at this time of year. The top 4, 5, 6 teams are going to be a percentage, 2, 3, maybe more higher than what they typically would be. So, I mean, I think you've only had 2 teams, just Montreal and Edmonton, and the Islanders as well, actually, in the 70s, had one over 30%. I think you've only had 3 in total over 30% at the end of the year. So it generally comes back to the pack after 82 games. But early on, if you're hot, which the Habs were when Demidov went up, we all know that. And when that broke down against LA initially, they're youngest team this year statistically, started last season, second youngest. You're very fragile, and you can see the fragility, and you can see nobody wants to be the guy. So no, I'll pass it and they'll make the decision, but at least I've kept it in motion. And someone's got to be that guy. And I don't know if you can get away on a successful power play without having somebody in front of the net. And I know Slav's been used at different positions, but bumper and whatnot. But with his size, I just think it's a natural thing to do tonight is to move him back to the front of the net, let a defenseman, you know, at least you get another body there. So you're taking away the eyes from the goaltender. And I just think it has to happen because these goalies today, yes, I think Demidov and I think Caulfield could both, maybe even Suzuki, depending on where he is. If he's down low enough, he can score from a little bit of distance. The other two certainly can, I think. But when it's broke, you've got to try and fix it. Conversely, when it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. Don't try and step outside the box. Just keep doing what you're doing. Well, now you've got 5 games where you haven't scored. You're way up high. Now you're way down low. So got to get the power play going. Got to get a body in front and got to get somebody just risking the shot. Throw it into traffic. Dirty goals are good too, man. They still count. They don't all have to be that tic-tac-toe back pass tap in. They'll still happen. They'll happen more when you've got other teams worried about the fact you're putting a percentage of those shots on net. So that's the first thing that has to happen. Thank you, Grant. I just got your message. Didn't even gotta give the shout out to my good buddies, Hosey and Brown Automotive. There they are. They are the reason I'm here doing this show with my good friend Grant, part of Habs Cast. As you guys all know, he's assembled a fantastic stable of Montreal Canadian supporters and media types and online types, if you will, led by him. And it was all rosy there up until a few games ago. So it's going to happen. And it's amazing, they've gone from first to third in the division, yet they've got in that top 3 in the Atlantic, they've got the higher winning percentage. Just go, geez, man, just win a game. Win a game, correct it here. But boy, when the tumblers fall off and now you got bodies out. So let me move ahead with a couple things. So it's power play. And I got to tell you, I tell you, I know I see now the teams, it's a copycat league. I watched the Bruins do it too. Now they worked a lot more efficiently down low. They scored a power play goal right off the bumper. They got some things going on. Very early on here, Marco Sturm looks like a great coach. It's early, rookie coaches. We've seen this show before, but given how many veteran bodies they moved out, and where they went last year, which was out of the playoffs, first time in a while, and here they are, the last couple of years, I guess I should say. And here they are, man. They're playing well. They played well. They've got a good transition game. Pasternak looks like he's as good as he's ever been. Now that's a huge loss with McAvoy, and I didn't check today or yesterday, to be honest. I haven't heard an update, so I don't know. But we'll get back to that. Other shows will as well, and you guys will all have your own updates following along online. You'll get everything going on Charlie. But that was a tough one. Noah Dobson, who can absolutely wire it, even though it was a bit of a deflection, caught Charlie up high here, and you saw the blood right away. So hopefully he'll be okay long term. But that's a big blow. But they just keep on finding a way to do it. So there you go. Speaking of veteran bodies out, guys who led you to first places, records, championships, finals, 2011 Cup in terms of Marchand, Chera retires, the others, you guys know them all. But they look good. You're playing a team that's kind of beat up right now mentally and obviously physically with some of the injuries, and young team, and they got it done. Give Boston credit. Came to Montreal, got the 2 points in a close one, and Habs unable to tie it up and at least get that loser point or force it to OT in the shootout, and who knows. But anyway, the power play would be the first thing. And so I know we're going to see Davidson tonight for sure. The guy played under 8 minutes. I thought he was really good. Like, I hope they give him some more ice. He had a few shots on net, right? I think 4 or something. I mean, the guy was effective. Looked good. You could see why he's off to the start he is with Laval. And I hope he gets a little more ice tonight. I'm assuming now with 2 starters out of your top 9 out, there's going to be, you got to move up the depth chart. Not sure who the additional player will be. Tonight's probably already announced. I haven't been online, so not sure who it is. And just we'll see what we got for a lineup tonight. And I'm not sure who's starting nets. I would assume Dobie. I would assume it's Dobish tonight. Monty on Saturday, didn't have a chance, I don't think, on that power play effort. It's a bang play. The others, it's, are they savable? Perhaps. And there's screens, long shots, going through bodies, finding corners. I don't I don't necessarily blame him. I wouldn't say he had a scintillating game by any means, but at the end of the day, we scored 2 goals. We're somewhat have to take percentage of the blame ourselves here. You typically got to score more than 2 to at least win or get a point. So, we're behind. We're behind certainly our seasonal average, and just these 3 games have been an absolute diagram of a team falling off a cliff. So the thing about Columbus, well, in Montreal, Habs are 7-3 in their last 10 against them. They played all 3 of their games last year in a 5-week span from like early November to mid-December type thing. I think they were all done before Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. I think they played their 3rd game against Columbus just a few days before Christmas. So well, right around Christmas last year, which they lost, and they won the other 2. And they lost. The one they lost, I think, was close. If I remember correctly, it was like 5-4. But the Habs went 3-0 against them the year before that. So they've kind of righted the ship. I think they struggled against Columbus there. If you historically turn the clock back a few years, they didn't have much success against them. But then the last few years they have. So I don't think it's a situation where you got to go in. You're not not that Columbus ever was really – they played Montreal well, but they haven't been obviously a great franchise over any length of time. Now, one of my great friends, dear friends, Barry Brennan, was rehired this year by the Blue Jackets as their strength and conditioning coach. For you Ottawa fighting purists, if you know anything about local Ottawa boxing, you may remember the Fighting Brennan brothers from Beaver Boxing. There were 3 of them, 3 or 4, 3 for sure, of which Barry was one. He was the heaviest, and but the one who had the most success was Brian. He made it all the way to the finals of the Olympic trials, I think as a junior welter or lightweight, but grease lightning, both hands. All 3 of them are tough. Barry got into strength and conditioning, started in the O, worked into the NHL, and was previously with Columbus. He was in the KHL for a number of years. He's back, came back, and got hired by the Blue Jackets. So obviously hoping to administer a little W on his resume tonight, courtesy of the Montreal Canadiens. But I do love the guy and wish him well in his second go with the Blue Jackets. And I mean, man, they got. I will be chatting with him before Christmas, if not, hopefully, maybe even seeing him at Christmas. But I must ask him about Matthew Olivier. And I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but that fight with Carrick, man, I'll tell you, Carrick and the Rangers, who gave him and Jack-Eye had a hell of a fight, and that was Jack-Eye stepping up for a teammate, and Carrick hung right in there. I don't know if I'd call it a draw. If there was a slight edge, it might even been to Carrick. And I'll talk about the fights on Saturday night here in just a second. But Olivier is the top dog, man. Delorier, and you can go down the line. There's a lot. There's some guys around the league that are pretty freaking tough that can really fight. That a lot of us don't. Because the fighting isn't as prevalent as it used to be, but some of these guys are still dropping the gloves. And unless you're watching this on some sort of a regular basis, you may be missing it. But we all know about Olivier. He's not sneaking up on anybody. So I don't know. This Arbor had a tough one on Saturday night, man. I'm glad that they mentioned that he was $1.15 into his shift. I will say this. It just pisses me off that he's bent over. The guy's 6'4". Use your size to your advantage. If you watch that Carrick Olivier fight, Carrick knows he's going up. He knows. These guys know. He knows he's fighting the number 1 guy in the league. And he made sure when he came in that there was no way Olivier could get his right hand, at least not initially. So he was able to throw it. He threw a total of 6 punches, 2 of which I think landed. I don't believe the other 4 did, but and then Olivier dropped him right with that last right hand. But he definitely got the W in the fight, no doubt about it. But give Carrick a ton of credit, man, a ton of credit. And I just with Arbor, like those first 3-4 fights he had in the NHL, he rushed in, which is good. He's not letting guys get set. He doesn't want to. It's his MO. It's what he used to do. And he'd come in big. Like he'd come in like this, and he's coming with an anvil, like from the top, like, let's go. You're getting at least one before he can grab it. Now he comes in and it's like he's going more for position. I don't know. I don't know. I don't like it. I know he's a $115 in, and he hasn't had any success against Janot anyway. I mean, they showed it. I think a couple of them, one of them, I think was probably a draw, but Janot has pretty much handled him. He definitely got the W on Saturday. I wish when Arbour went in the front of the net, and McAvoy is before he got hurt, and he tackled him, and I was hoping Arbour would have come up swinging there. Take the extra 2 at that point. Reassert yourself. Reassert the team and push back physically. And I that's what, I'm an old school guy. I enjoy that type of the game. If it gets a little violent or a little crazy, I don't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with Jonathan Quick did last night for the Rangers against Detroit, even though that puck went in way less time, way less egregious of a code-breaking foul than Ridley Gregg's slap shot against Toronto here in Ottawa. But still, at the end of the day, Quick came off the bench and said, F you, and went right at him. And, of course, everybody's got no choice then but to pile on. Now, I love the announcing this morning on TSN and Sportsnet, calling it a brawl. Boy, oh, boy. Last thing to tell you better not show any footage from the 70s and 80s of bench clearing brawls because it was a little bit different. But still, I had no problem with it. And I would have had no problem with Arbour coming out of that scrum swinging like he did. He'd already lost the fight to Janot. I think Janot was aware of that. I believe that was sort of indicated online. And Janot knew he caught him. He got him at the end of the shift. And he won him because Arbour popped him, right? So he came in. He wanted a piece of him. Arbour obliged. Of course, he's going to most times. He hasn't sometimes when he knows what the score and he knows the situation, which already proves he's maturing as a fighter. But I would have myself, given the nature of the way the Canadians have been playing the last few games, I would have fully endorsed him coming up swinging in that scenario. Anyway, he's still going to be an important piece going forward. Struble, man, massive gonads. Obviously, again, we were made privy to the conversation from Gary Galley that there was an exchange between Zadorov and Struble during warm-up. And clearly, that wasn't Zadorov calling him on. That was Struble saying, hey, we're going. And the way Zadorov has been working his way through the Atlantic the last 2 weeks, crippling guys left, right, and center. What a gutsy, ballsy, just so much respect for Struble doing that. And again, hung right in there against a much bigger guy who really is legit tough. I mean, he's obviously probably top 5. I don't have him in Olivier or Delorier's class as a fighter. He's bigger physically, but he's going to lose if he fights those guys. But that said, maybe we'll see it again this year because things change, right? You never know. But just Struble, much respect. And I think Arbour probably said, hey, I gotta go too. I got my sparring partner in Janot. But unfortunately, he didn't get to pick the timing of that. And as a result, he was pretty winded and took a shot, went down. None of it was a good look as far as I'm concerned. It had no real bearing on the game. Neither of them did, although, well, Zadorov was in the box, 3 times? I don't think the fight had anything to do with it, but it's immaterial. The fact is, just massive props to Strubes there. And good on Arbour going a tough guy anyway. Like, Janot's no shrinking violet. I mean, he got absolutely waxed by Ryan Reeves. In fact, he got knocked out of the lineup last year fighting Reeves. But Janot is legit tough cat. And I don't know that we'll see anything tonight. I think the only guy really on Montreal that would probably, he has fought Olivier. We know this before, is Arbour. I don't know if Struble wants to climb Mount Everest there, but depending on the situation of the game, maybe, right? You just never know. But my thing tonight, and my thing since the loss to Boston here, would be at practice, would have been the power play. And where I was going to go with that was the entry. Oh, it's starting to really frustrate me, man. Um, I guess everybody got tired of the Swedish torpedo, so now they're going with the 2-man up the ice. And used to be that was originally Swedish hockey. That thing, the slingshot with the guy coming up like 100 miles an hour from in behind that every team has copied going back 10 years. That actually originated in Sweden. And of course got copied over here. And once any NHL team has success with anything, they copycat it. So that said, now we're at the 2-man. It comes up, drop back to Suzuki. He's looking for Caulfield or Demi and finds a guy. And it obviously was working. They were gaining the zone or winning that first face-off, which that's another thing that has slipped here just in this last stretch of lack of lack of success on the power play. Winning that first draw and losing those first 20-25 seconds. Man, that was such a staple part of Montreal's diet here the last 3-4 years. It was so sickening. And if that's going to be the case, then you've got to gain the zone coming back up, and they've really struggled at that as well. So not to say go back to the torpedo necessarily, but gaining the zone has been an issue. And then obviously maintaining any presence down low. I know some pucks that jump. They've had a little bit of bad luck. I mean, Hudson hit the post the other night, and who knows, right? It was such a good rush, such a good play. He's down low. He wires a good shot. We've had some bad luck, but every team does. And now you got to find a way to stop the slide. This is the thing from the last couple of years. The 5-gamers and 6-game. They had a stretch last year where they lost 8 out of 9. I mean, we'll be right back out, right? We'll be right back down in the bottom half of the Atlantic here in no time. We all know that. That's nothing, stating the obvious there. So hoping the power play gets going tonight. Hoping the game is close. Hoping we get decent goaltending. Dobie hit the wall and against Dallas. And, I wouldn't say by any means all 7 were his fault. And it's, but they found some holes. Nice breakaway goal by Seguin. It's going to happen. And, they just found some holes and got her done. Give Dallas credit. I mean, they beat a pretty good Flyer team 5-1 the very next game. I mean, Dallas right now and Colorado right now and only one of them can come out of the West. How crazy is that, man? That's pretty crazy over there, the balance of power, because Hyman has had an immediate impact on Edmonton. Connor McDavid the last 3-4 games looks insane. If he's hit that switch, look out. Watch the Oilers come racing back up, and that West is just going to be a murderer's row. And the Habs just got to try and hang around and look available, man. Just hang around and look available and scratch and claw for points. But do the things you can control. You've got to get the power play going. You've got to get some average goaltending. Average goaltending is like a 902, 905 save percentage and about a 2.6 goals against. If you look down at the mean right now, it's probably right around that. So if you're throwing up bagels for goals, giving up crap goals, and running an 860, 850, 860, 870 a save percentage, and goals against averages over 3.5, you're going to lose 90% of the time. So easy to say, right? Fix these things. How do you do it? It's difficult when regulars are out of the lineup. So, it puts some pressure on the guys who are your star guys. So I'm going to wrap it up here and keep her tight to half an hour. Montreal Forum. I head out tomorrow to New Brunswick, where I'll be working with Stéphane Richer. Not a lot happened on this day in Montreal Canadian history. Got a kind of a neat anecdote in NHL history. November 17, 1979, Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe played against each other for the first time in the NHL. Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe. Kind of neat. Actually, Hartford beat Edmonton 4-0. Gordie got an assist. You can believe it. He was 51 years old. He turned 52 that March, and he was a grandfather. Kind of crazy when you think about it. But it's too bad the Habs aren't playing the Red Wings tonight, because the first time Detroit has the Red Wings ever played the Montreal Canadiens was on this date 93 years ago, just a little before our time, November 17, 1932. And the interesting thing, the reason I share the story is, and I'll finish on this note, is the Red Wings' primary color was red. They had previously been named the Detroit Falcons, and before that, the Detroit Cougars. They came in the NHL as the Cougars in 1926 because the Detroit ownership group bought the Victoria Cougars from the Pacific Coast Hockey Association, just like Chicago bought the Portland Rosebuds. And that's how they got their franchises. Anyway, their first name was the Cougars. They played their home games in Windsor, the Border City Arena, until the Detroit rink was built. The Olympia came along, as we know, long before Joe Louis, which opened in 79, and now they've got the new rink again. So, but then they became the Falcons in 1930, and then in 32, they changed the Red Wings when they were bought by the Norris family, Mr. Norris, who changed the crest to the winged wheel, put the wing on, because he played hockey in Montreal. He was a native Montrealer for a team called the Montreal Winged Wheelers. And their crest was a wheel and a wing. So he used that crest for the Detroit Red Wings and the hubcap, basically, for Detroit, Motor City. Perfect synergy there. And they played in Montreal, but their sweaters were deemed to be too similar to the Habs. So going in, Norris said, well, what are we going to do? And the president at the time, Frank Calder, said, you're going to have to wear white bibs over your unis. So the first game ever, which was on this date, November 17th, 1932, between the Detroit Red Wings and the Montreal Canadiens, the Red Wings had to wear white bibs over their jerseys. So when goals were scored and whatever, I mean, the officials pretty much knew all the guys. There was no buckets in those days. But, you had to call out the numbers or whatever. You had to go over and get the guy to lift his bib. It wasn't too much of a hassle. It was all said and done. And the next time they came in, they had the white version of it, and they were able to figure it out. So there you go. Little historical tidbit for you here to finish the Montreal Forum with Liam Maguire. Again, thanks to Dick Irvin for the intro. Thanks to Hosey and Brown Automotive for the sponsorship. Thanks to Grant McCagg for the thank you, Grant, for putting it up there. My good buddy Rod Brown of Hosey and Brown. And as I said, I will be with the last person to score 50 goals for the Montreal Canadiens the next 3 nights. We've got 2 events in northern New Brunswick in the Campbellton, Dalhousie, St. John area, if you're familiar with New Brunswick at all. I'm desperately trying to get Steph to join me here on the Montreal Forum. He's a little reluctant. He didn't flat out say absolutely not. But to date, he has said no. So I will ask him again. He always likes to, my girlfriend Wendy, who's probably listening here in the kitchen, will get a kick out of this, because I like to wear cowboy boots. They're my choice of footwear. And, the expression, your old shit kickers. Well, mine were old and they were shit kickers. And Stéphane Richer, cut the hell out of me on our last tour there last month. We were in Saskatchewan, and he ridiculed the hell out of me. So I have since bought new boots, and I'll be breaking them out. So we'll be having a beer somewhere in Campbellton tomorrow night, watching hockey, and I'll have the new boots on. So I'll look forward to his commentary. He'll just find something else, because that's what they do, man. And I can't wait. Can't wait to see him. We've become very good friends, and I am hopeful to get him on the Montreal Forum. I think it would be a spectacular interview. He was not only a fantastic Cab, but obviously a tremendous NHLer. He's a Stanley Cup winner with New Jersey and the Montreal Canadiens and the finalists. And he was just such a prolific scorer there when he was in his absolute prime. Just amazing Amazing guy, too. Amazing guy. So, anyway, that's it for me. I'm Liam Maguire. This is the Montreal Forum. On behalf of Grant, Dick, Rod Brown, Hosey, and Brown, we'll see you next time. G'day.